bid for the presidency in 2024. He also went on to talk about a whole host of things, a laundry list of items ranging from the war in Ukraine. One of the lines he had there stood out for me. He said, Ukraine is not our war, but freedom is our fight. And the importance of America's role in the world and why that's such a critical part of not just our national security, but for freedom all around the world. He also talked about the need to get past the egos and the egocentric ambition of many, that it was really more about rising on the principles of freedom and good public policy that empowers the American people to pursue their own version of the American dream. So again, that's former Vice President Mike Pence is now officially in what is a growing and crowded field on the Republican side. We'll continue to break that down as the days move forward. There's a lot to address there, but I thought this was a very interesting approach from the former vice president, and I do believe that his wife, Karen, gave the message of the day in the real virtue, the real principle that we need in our elected officials, as she introduced her husband, not with a lot of accolades, but with a lesson in humility from two devastating political losses, and why that humility is what is really the crucial quality of leaders for the next century.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Summer 2023 will be one to remember.
Mike Pence and Chris Christie set to enter the race.
Governor Cox is actively looking for trade away from China.
Brace for higher gas prices.
It's a summer to camp out on KSL. Tim and Amanda have breaking news. Mornings 5 to 9. David Dujanovic and Boyd Matheson talk about the biggest stories during the day. And you get updates and Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News from 3 to 7 on the drive home. The summer of 2023 will be on KSL News Radio.
Have you thinking about doing some home repairs, remodeling, maybe consolidating some debt that you've racked up, or maybe look at a vacation or different projects around your house? Well, this is the perfect time to look at the equity that is in your home. And the best way to do that is with our friends at Hercules Credit Union. They have a home equity line of credit, and if you mention that you heard this ad on KSL, they'll give you an introductory rate on that home equity line of credit of 3.99% for the first 6 months of the loan. We've been talking about rising interest rates. Great to lock that in, and Hercules Credit Union will help you do that. They also make sure that there's no fees involved in this. You get a Visa card that goes with it so you can access your equity, your funds, anytime, anywhere, any reason, all through our friends at Hercules Credit Union. You can check out their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, or Salt Lake City. And as always, with our friends at Hercules Credit Union, you can find them online at herculescu.com.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients' portfolios for their long-term goals.
You don't just provide cookie-cutter portfolios?
No. We tailor our clients' portfolios to their goals and needs.
But you still sell investments that generate high commissions for you, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We're a fiduciary, the highest standard of care for a financial advisor. It means we're obligated to act in our client's best interest.
So when do you make more money? Only when your clients make more money?
Yep, we have one transparent management fee structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Sounds like you really look out for your clients.
We do, because our priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
I lost 34 pounds on the SOTA weight loss system, and I did it like a year and a half ago now. Has it been that long?
It has.
Oh my gosh. It seems like yesterday because it was so simple. I know you think of weight loss, especially losing 34 pounds or more, as being just an incredibly difficult thing. And it has been at other times in my life, but not with SOTA. With SOTA, I just did what they told me. I can follow directions. Eat this then. Okay. I did that. And in 3 months, I lost the weight, and now it's been over a year and a half, and I've kept it off.
I was just thinking how rare it is that somebody would say, I lost a certain number of pounds a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
That's unheard of
Yeah.
for many people because they'll lose the weight and then they gain it back. Plus, they usually put on a few pounds over and above that. My daughter lost 42 pounds and she's still down. Thanks to the great people at Soda Weight Loss. No pills, no counting calories, no appetite suppressants. Let this program work for you or somebody in your family. Go to sodaweightloss.com, spelled SOTA. Think Tim and Amanda. It is state of the art.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house, whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed. Call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah County authorities used explosives to get rid of a hazard near Bridal Veil Falls. Second, the Green River running high now that outflows from Flaming Gorge Dam have been increased. Third, former Vice President Mike Pence has made his long-expected announcement as a Republican candidate for president. Right now, 77 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, the Biden administration is hastily trying to thaw tensions and open lines of communication between the United States and China. But is China really interested in doing the same? Recent actions and rhetoric tell us that China may not be ready to just smooth things over just yet. Josh Rogin is a columnist for the Global Opinion section of the Washington Post, also a political analyst with CNN. And he's also the author of Chaos Under Heaven, Trump, Xi, and the Battle for the 21st Century. Fascinating stuff. And Josh, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you.
Great piece today talking about how China maybe isn't quite as serious about improving relations as maybe some of the rhetoric would have us believe.
Yeah, well, that's right. I was writing about a major conference that happened last week in Singapore. It's called the Shangri-La Dialogue. That's because it's held at the Shangri-La Hotel. Beautiful hotel, great restaurants. And what happens is every year the U.S. Defense Secretary and the Chinese Defense Minister show up, and usually they meet. But this year, the Chinese Defense Minister refused to meet with our Defense Secretary. And then he gave this speech basically blaming the United States for everything that's wrong in the world and presenting China as the more benign, more benevolent alternative. And, you know, and then out of the other side of his mouth, he said, well, actually, we wanted communication and cooperation and to avoid the Cold War and to get along and to negotiate. And both of those things seem opposed to each other. In other words, what they're saying and what they're doing are two different things. And, you know, for the Biden administration, for really any U.S. government, you know, they're always thinking, oh, man, how can we get along with China? It makes sense. It's good to get along with China, but it takes two to tango. And if they don't want to get along with us, there's not a whole ton we can do about it. And that's the point that I made in the column.
Yeah, and I thought it was so interesting. I love the way you started out in kind of trying to put this floor, not looking at how high we can go with this relationship, but just putting a floor underneath it as a real starting point. But give us some context to that, Josh, in terms of recent actions. We know airplane kind of buzzing other airplanes and things happening on the waters. Give us a sense of where we are and where the rhetoric and the reality are just not congruent.
Right. I mean, you know, the Biden administration came in saying that they wanted to sort of compete with China and confront them and cooperate them all at the same time. We were going to have a very nuanced, complex policy. The problem is the Chinese don't want that. They don't care about that. They're not going to cooperate with us while we're confronting them on the things that they're doing wrong, like menacing Taiwan, committing a genocide against the Uyghurs, you know, unfair trade practices, just to name a few. And so what the Chinese government has been doing is they've been giving the Biden people the cold shoulder. They've been giving them the stiff arm. He won't even take a call. Xi Jinping won't even take a call from the President of the United States. And it's been several months And so naturally, like the Biden people look around, they're like, oh, this isn't good, And here go all these European leaders, Macron and Schultz and all these guys taking all these trips to Beijing, and Biden sitting by the phone waiting for Xi to call. So naturally, it's a human thing. It's like, oh, man, we got to get back in the room with these guys. But that's what the Chinese government wants. They want us to come running, and they want us to pay them to talk, essentially. And what I argue is that we shouldn't fall for that, because that's the trap. And talking is great, but paying to talk is not great, But that's not a good situation. I'm not here to tell you it's a good situation. So what I say is that, let's work with the people who want to work with us. That's our allies, people in the region who have the same problem that we do, and leave the door open for China, but not expect them to want to improve relations. In fact, maybe they don't want to improve relations. Maybe what we're seeing is that they see it in their benefit for tensions to go up.
Yeah.
That keeps us on our back foot. And that's something that's really hard for Washington people to sort of wrap their heads around. Nevertheless, it might be true.
Yeah, and you covered so many important things in there. I want to unpack a couple of those. You talk about how do we deal with this, and as you mentioned in your piece, it's not just about pleading for a meeting and waiting by the phone. You talked about it in the context of bolstering alliances. Unpack that for us. What does that look like?
Right. So, also at this conference in Singapore, there were all these other countries, Japan, Korea, India, Indonesia, and each of these countries is different. They all have different interests. They all have different values. They have different governments. And, what China's doing is they're courting all of them in different ways. And, we're not playing that game the way that we should. And, a lot of these countries would rather partner with us than with China, or at least not have to choose. But we don't really have a positive side of the agenda. We have a lot of fingers to wag at people for doing the wrong thing. Oh, you didn't support Ukraine enough, or you didn't do this, or you had this human rights violation. And although those things are important, what the leaders of these countries want is like investment and trade deals and, business and stuff that can make them successful and feed their people. That's rational. And the Chinese are just doing that 10 times as much as we are. So that's a really bad situation. So, rather than spend all of our time, because, the way government works is you have a few people with a limited amount of time. Rather than these few people at the top of our government spending all their time trying to get into the room with China, why not spend all that time with all these other countries and come up with a way to help them and then in turn help ourselves?
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And I think one of the other things that you've really been kind of leaning into, Josh, is this idea that clearly China is trying to lean in on the diplomatic front, dealing with things in the Middle East. They're clearly leaning in with belts and roads and mining operations and economic investment in a lot of different countries. And as you said, sometimes it feels like the U.S. is playing checkers to China's three-dimensional chess going on. What is it that the administration should be looking to do? What's a concrete something that we ought to move on in order to change the dynamics of that game?
Well, if I had to pick one, I would say what we have to do is we have to cut off the money spigot, because what most Americans don't realize is that all of these Chinese activities are funded by Americans, by Wall Street firms who use Americans' investment to grow Chinese companies that help the government, help the Chinese military build the machine against us. It's a pretty crazy situation. Mm-hmm. And how can we sanction the companies that are building the missiles and doing cyber hacking and doing a genocide against the Uyghurs if Wall Street comes in with 100 times as much money? And, that's the capital markets. You have this huge country, China, but their money doesn't leave their country. It doesn't trade outside their country. So how are they going around the world buying up countries and continents? They're doing that with our money. So if we turned off that spigot, I think that would make a big difference.
Yeah, it's such a great piece. Check this out at the Washington Post today. Again, Josh Rogan's a columnist for the global opinion section of the Washington Post, a political analyst with CNN. Josh, this is the best analysis out there on where we are and what we need to do next as it relates to China. And we appreciate you weighing in and giving us some insight today.
Anytime.
All right. Again, that's Josh Rogan, columnist for the Washington Post on the opinion section. And this is just really good analysis. Not a lot of people are talking about it in the way that Josh just framed it for us, and just why it matters that, one, we shouldn't just be waiting by the phone for President Xi to call President Biden, nor should we be just racing and taking any possible meeting we can as if we're begging for it. There are things that we have to do. And as Josh pointed out, one, we got to make sure we're bolstering our own alliances, that we're investing in those and not just sitting around waiting for China to do something. We also have to lean in on the diplomatic fronts at different places around the world. China is clearly playing that game, and they're also making investments in other places. And as Josh pointed out, it's that spigot of money flowing in that is allowing them to fund all of these different projects that they're doing around the world. And it's going to require the administration to maybe look at things just maybe a little different than they have in the past. And again, we can't just be sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, hoping to thaw a few things or to just get a floor underneath the relationship with China. If China is not interested in the relationship, we can't just wait around for the relationship to reemerge. We have to do something to create a reason for China to re-engage in that relationship. All right, we're going to step aside for some bottom of the hour news, but don't go anywhere. You want to listen to our next guest. Jonathan Rauch from Brookings Institution is going to join us, talk about some of the challenges and opportunities and why even an atheist should be for religious liberty and faith in the public square. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour, 300 East between 800 South and 900 South in Salt Lake City will be closed for a couple of weeks to repair damage caused by a water main break. The main was providing water to a senior housing facility. They hope to have the water back on there this afternoon. Pharmacists say the diabetic drug Ozempic has been challenging to keep in stock across the country because it's used off-label for weight loss. But the University of Utah's chief pharmacy officer says that's been less of a problem in Utah.
The good news is that pharmacies are receiving more orders in, and the overall supply is getting a lot better. We're still seeing some shortages of Mounjaro, which is a different drug, but it's like Ozempic.
Many insurance plans don't cover Ozempic when it's used for weight loss, and it could cost as much as $1,500 a month. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. More residents along the Dnipro River in Ukraine have been forced to leave their homes after the Kakhovka Dam was blown up. Water was further affected there. ABC's Tom Sufi-Burridge is in Zaporizhia, where they're keeping an eye on a nuclear power plant.
I've just spoken to some locals, and they say they've never seen it like this before. The river has clearly receded. The water levels are dropping. We're upstream because the water is basically flowing out of that reservoir, out of the dam, further down the river, and it's having a massive impact on the river and the whole ecosystem around this.
Russia and Ukraine blame each other for the sabotage. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 117 points right now on the day, but the NASDAQ's been down all day right now, 147 points in the red. And coming up, it looks like we're going to get another thunderstorm this afternoon. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
Our state's children face a serious threat from the vaping industry. But thanks to state leaders and the Utah Health Department, Utah established the strictest nicotine standards for vaping in the United States to protect our kids. However, the vaping industry sued, claiming their sales and profits are down. Now they're pushing the Health Department to hand control of vaping regulations to the federal government. We can't allow that to happen. The proposed change would automatically increase nicotine levels in vape pens and reintroduce fruity flavors that entice our kids back into Utah convenience stores. Visit StopKidsVaping.com today and make your voice heard. Utah should maintain state control, preserve our 3% nicotine limitations, and prevent vaping flavors from returning to Utah convenience stores. Together, we can secure a better future for our children. Join us at StopKidsVaping.com and tell the Health Department, protect our kids.
Paid for by Prosperous Utah Communities.
Want to annihilate payroll problems? Wipe them out with Paycom. Paycom torches timesheet errors like a flamethrower. Oh, obliterates overtime blunders like a wrecking ball. Holy mackerel! And PTO problems? Paycom leaves them pulverized. Wow! Because with Paycom, employees do their own payroll right in the Paycom app. They find and fix errors before payroll submission, so HR can tackle important stuff, like performance incentives and retaining top producers, so your people can crush their goals. And with Paycom, employees enter and manage their own HR info, like onboarding, tax setup, and benefits enrollment. It's all in one powerful software with ironclad security. Stop doing that! Sick of HR and payroll headaches? Don't just eliminate them. Demolish them! At Paycom.com.
Hi, this is Dan, the laptop man from PC Laptops. Are you suffering from excruciating headaches, anxiety, and insomnia? You may be suffering from CMS, crappy monitor syndrome. That old computer screen from years ago could be the problem, exposing you to massive amounts of radiation frying your brain. At PC Laptops, we only carry screens that we've tested on our own eyeballs. Right now, purchase any PC Laptops desktop with an external monitor and get a free size upgrade. That's right. For example, if you buy a 22-inch monitor, you get an upgrade to 24 inches for no extra charge. Buy a 24, get an upgrade to a 27-inch monitor for free. We have brand new PC Laptops desktop computers starting from $11.99 or $29 a month, backed by a lifetime warranty. And to make it extra sweet, we're doing 0 interest for a year on approved credit. So run into any one of our PC Laptops locations right now or check us out at PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com. Because at PC Laptops, we love you.
Take a break from financial worries. Meet the Mountain America debt consolidation expert for a chance to win a vacation package. Details at macu.com/debt rescue.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meeks.
Valley Freeway traffic rolling along with no problems. Salt Lake City PD on the scene of an accident with possible injuries. 1400 South, 2300 East. Drivers, motorcycles can be easily hidden in a car's blind spots or masked by objects, bushes, or fences. Take an extra moment, look for motorcycles while changing lanes or turning at intersections. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, partly cloudy through the day with that chance of thunderstorms again this afternoon. We have a cooling trend with temperatures in the 80s this week to 70s next week. And right now, 80 degrees, mostly cloudy. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we are very pleased to have joining us on the program today Jonathan Rauch, Senior Fellow in the Governance Studies Program at the Brookings Institution. He's the author of 8 books, countless articles on public policy, culture, government, and a host of other things. But as you all know, I don't like to introduce people by their biography. I like to identify them by their principles. And one of the things that I always look to Jonathan for is his ability to really thread that needle in terms of government, culture, public policy, and principles. And I think it's Jonathan's ability to get to the principles of so many different things, such a wide range of topics that makes him a real treasure in the country and someone that I look to for good, rational, reasonable, but powerfully inspiring information and content. And Jonathan, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Boyd. With an introduction like that, I should quit while I'm ahead.
We're not going to let you off that easy. That's the other rule of this show. So,
it's all downhill from there.
Well, I know everyone is looking forward. You'll be part of the 2023 Religious Freedom Annual Review, which, of course, will be down at the BYU Conference Center, in conjunction with the Wheatley Institute, and just some important conversations there. And so let's start with what's coming up. This is on June the 15th. There at the BYU Conference Center, and you'll be a part of some really crucial discussions around challenges and opportunities for religious institutions. Give us a little bit of framing there from your perspective.
Well, my perspective is a bit unusual for a conference like this because I am an atheistic homosexual Jew, and so I am very much an outsider. But I am also someone who believes that our democracy does not function well if religion and secular politics don't have mutually supportive values. I'm not saying religion should be politicized or that politics should be deified, just the opposite. But I am saying that these two very different forces are both crucial to making the American experiment work, and the founders thought so too. So recently the work I've been doing is to try to understand how Christianity can get along better with democracy than it's doing right now.
And this is such important work, and I love the way you've framed that in terms of the these two components, religion and those institutions, and the politics and the governing and all of that, and those institutions. And just dig into that a little bit deeper for us, Jonathan, in terms of what is it that those two things need to be separated from, and what do they need to be united around?
Well, I used to be, in my youth, much more of a kind of ACLU style secularist. I had nothing against religion. Of course, although I'm an atheist, I was never a militant atheist. But I really did believe in kind of a wall of separation between church and state. So the only thing that religion should ask of government is to leave it alone, and the only thing that government should ask of religion is really nothing. And I came to see over time that the problem there is that the political system, the Constitution, is not designed to give us our basic values in life. I mean, it's about politics. It's about how we compromise, how we legislate, how we come together as a polity. But as the founders said to whoever would listen, none of those processes work if people hate each other so much that they don't want to come together, or if people believe the other side is so dangerous that they don't want to compromise with them and, in fact, just want to defeat them and drive them out of the country. And more Americans were believing that, and unfortunately, more and more Protestant Christians, evangelicals, were believing that, getting swept up in the culture wars, being politicized, becoming the base of the MAGA movement. And then we also saw that seculars, in the progressive world, were increasingly saying, well, let's take away the tax breaks for religious organizations, and let's not give them any space at all to, for example, distinguish between gay marriage and straight marriage. And so that became a collision, and that's a dangerous collision for democracy, because democracy relies on supporting values coming out of our religious traditions. I'm not saying they're not separate. I'm not saying you have to believe in God to be democratic, but you do need to try to align those two forces better than they're aligned right now, when they're started to really pull apart.
Yeah, I think that's such a crucial part of the conversation. And as you were sharing that, Jonathan, I was thinking back to an interview I did with Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs from the UK just before he passed away. And he talked about that.
Yeah, great man.
Yeah, an amazing thinker and writer, and it ended up being one of his last interviews before he passed away. But he talked about this idea that the institutions of government are not, as you just said, not designed to deliver those values, that it could deliver a maximum of choice but a minimum of meaning, and that we had to go beyond just the politics, and we can't let the politics overtake the religion, or the religion become centric in politics. And so as you look at how we have those conversations, I think this is something you do extraordinarily well, is get people into a space to have a different kind of conversation, both about our politics and about our religion.
Well, that's the hope. I'm so much of an outsider that I'll never be influential in these worlds, but I am heartened by the beginnings of movements from within the evangelical Protestant world to begin to say, hey, wait a minute. I mean, it's no good to have Christ-like values in your personal life and then be cruel, dominating, and just nasty in your political life. And so people are increasingly saying, wait, these values are all of a piece. We need to bring more Christian values into the way we do politics. I'm very encouraged to see the LDS Church is, I think, turning itself into a leader in that space. And I also hope that we can see, maybe even are seeing, the beginning of more awareness on the secular, not the extreme progressive left, not the radical people, but in more like the center left, the world of mainstream liberal Democrats, a better understanding that religion has got to be part of the equation of keeping this country healthy, that, you can't replace it with soul cycle.
Yeah. That's such an important piece. I was thinking we had former Governor Mike Leavitt, former HHS secretary, and he was giving a speech about the economics of goodness, and actually had an interesting back and forth with some renowned economists about the economics of goodness. And one stood up and said, you're turning in this to a religious discussion. And then just as Governor Leavitt was trying to think of a comeback or how to respond, another economist stood up and similarly said, no, it's not about religion. I'm an atheist. This is about human behavior and the absolute predictability of consequences. That someone who is honest is going to get into less trouble than someone who cheats. Someone who's kind is going to have more friends than someone who's cruel. Societies that look out for each other are going to have less crime and more opportunity and upward mobility than those that don't. And I think it is that economics of goodness that you're pointing to that often gets lost in the very polarized space that you just described.
Yes, and that's exactly right. There's now reams and reams of evidence from sociology and social sciences that participation in religious communities, not just belief, that doesn't do it, but participating, showing up, being part of those communities makes people psychologically and emotionally healthier. It makes them physically healthier. It leads to better outcomes in terms of the community and giving and less crime. And humans need to feel like we're participating in something transcendent, bigger than themselves. Now, I might be an exception. I've never believed in God. I've never felt a need to. I think I'm a person of at least medium character, even though I'm an atheist, and lots of secular people are wonderful people. Yeah. But for society as a whole, if you don't have these institutions that are able to transmit these values, create a sense of community, show up on your doorstep if something has gone wrong, then you get a lot of people who get isolated and a sense of meaninglessness and drift, and then they're easy prey for demagogues and outrage artists.
Yeah, that performative politics will always go down that path, and the grievance approach to it all, that division and isolation that just unravels and really frays the fabric of society. Jonathan Rauch is Senior Fellow in the Governance Studies Program at the Brookings Institution, author of numerous books. He is someone that you should read, that you should follow, who comes from a fascinating perspective and always enlightens me and always gives me a perspective that I hadn't quite thought about. And Jonathan, we appreciate you doing that today, and we look forward to having you in the state of Utah next week at the Wheatley Institute on Thursday, June the 15th for the 2023 Religious Freedom Annual Review. And I know you will cause people to think again about a whole host of things, and that's always our goal, is to get past the headlines and to get people to think again about something they think they might already know. And we really appreciate you carving out time for us.
Thank you, Boyd.
Great perspective from Jonathan Rauch. Religion, secular politics, crucial for democracy. You need to go back and listen to this on the podcast. It will cause you to think again and again and again. A great perspective from Jonathan Rauch. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Right on cue for summer.
OPEC plans to cut oil production.
Gas prices are headed up.
It could drive up prices for other goods.
Whether you're planning a staycation or a day trip, start your summer here. Get updates on traffic out of town, gas prices, and everything you need to know. Listen each day this summer, mornings and afternoons, to KSL News Radio.
Register for breaking news updates by texting the word news to the Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line at 57500.
Picture this. A warm summer evening, the sun setting behind the mountains, blankets being laid out on the cool grass, and world-class music. It's the Utah Symphony's Deer Valley Music Festival, and you're invited to escape into the music. With 12 concerts at Snow Park Amphitheater featuring country pop sensation LeAnn Rimes, the movie music of John Williams, alt-rocker Ben Folds, and the Beach Boys. Tickets are on sale now at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org. The sun is hanging in the sky ready to set. Blankets are spreading out across the cool grass. A slight mountain breeze can be felt as picnic baskets begin to open. It's the Utah Symphony's Deer Valley Music Festival, and you're invited to escape into the music. With 12 amazing concerts at Snow Park Amphitheater featuring hit headliner artists and everything from classical to classic rock, there's something just for you. Tickets are on sale now and going fast at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org.
Getting close to retirement? Or have you retired? You've probably got a ton of stress-filled questions on your mind. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth. Getting a second opinion with an individualized investment plan is vital, and our fiduciary advisors do just that. Take it from this Trajan Wealth client.
It was just so pleasant, so comfortable. I think we had 7 different accounts, just stuff scattered all over the place. And then so we just started, here's this, move this. And he even explained it a couple different times. But if I have more questions, he said, just give us a call. And that's what I love. He's a phone call away. Like, I'm glad I know these guys. Such a huge weight off my shoulder.
Imagine not second-guessing investments or monthly retirement income. That's the peace of mind you'll get from working with Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600 today or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Actual client, no compensation, no conflicts. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
If you're getting new gutters, make absolutely sure that you don't get screwed. I mean literally, don't get screwed. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. And every single gutter company out there uses screws to hold their gutters together at the corners and downspouts. They use screws because they're fast and cheap and easy. But man, they're terrible for your gutters, aside from possibly cutting your hand. They also loosen and corrode over time because they're not made from the same metal as the gutters. At RGS Exteriors, we've been installing gutters for 70 years now, and we don't use screws. We only use permanent, strong, and unobtrusive rivets. They're made from the same material as the gutters, so they won't oxidize and they won't corrode. They'll also never loosen. Your hand is safe too. Did I mention they look amazing? So don't get screwed. Call RGS and get riveted gutters. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsutah.com.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Babbel. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at babbel.com/TNC.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, you're starting to speak another language.
Babbel's lessons are voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right. If you want to learn a language, there's no better way than
Babbel.
Text radio to 64,000 to try Babbel for free. Text radio to 64,000.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio is your window to the outside world, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio, or listen on the KSL News Radio app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Well, of course, the 2024 presidential field continues to expand with former Vice President Mike Pence, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum jumping into the race today. Chris Christie jumped in yesterday. Someone who's rubbed shoulders with and worked alongside many of these candidates is former Utah Governor Gary Herbert, who joins us on the line. And Governor, great to have you back on the show. And this is one of those ultimate questions. What do you do when all your friends decide to run for president of the United States?
Well, it is a dilemma. In fact, I reached out to Chris Christie earlier today to offer my congratulations for throwing his hat in the ring. And it's going to be an interesting race. I'm partial to governors. And if you look at the list that's out there running or declaring an interest in running, most of them are governors, and I think that's good. I think governors bring an expertise and a skill set that's needed in the executive branch as president. So it'll be an interesting race. I think it's already shaping up to be interesting in many ways. With Chris Christie jumping in the race, he's going to be a guy that says, I'm going to fight fire with fire. And it'll be some fireworks between him and Trump, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be the case. And let's talk a little bit about those governors because it is an interesting thing. Governing from the executive branch is very different than doing it from the legislative branch. And just describe a little bit of what you've seen in some of those former governors, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Asa Hutchinson, Doug Burgum, some of those that you've rubbed shoulders with. What is it that they bring from the governor's office that would be helpful in the Oval Office?
Well, I like Nikki Haley because she's a former tennis player. And she was a good tennis player, so maybe we can get a match up on the White House on the courts there. They all have talents. They've got to find a niche to exploit their positives and minimize their negatives. They all, as Chris said yesterday, if you're looking for the perfect candidate, that's not me. And of course, every candidate could or should say that because there's no perfect candidate. I like Mike Pence. He's more Reagan-esque. I like the fact that he's got a moral core. He's had experience in the Congress of about 12 years as a congressman, a former governor, and certainly sitting in the vice president's office. Really understands the issues. I think can really hit the road running, and brings some talent and skills. I think are necessary. He was really there to kind of help leaven the loaf with President Trump, I think. Asa Hutchins, a very quality individual from Arkansas, a great guy. He's been in Congress too, I think 6 to 8 years, and so he has experience with the Congress. Has done a good job as a governor. Doug Burgum from North Dakota, a very successful entrepreneur in technology. He'll probably be able to do a little self-funding, and that'll help him get his name identification up. Not as well known being from North Dakota as some. Tim Scott, who I think brings a lot to the table. He's just such an articulate fellow, and again, his experience as African American, I think he, for the Republican side, can show this is what's happened to me, this can happen to you. The principles and values expressed in the Republican Party really are welcoming to all people, including minorities, and he can illustrate that better than most. Ron DeSantis, of course, is the guy in second place. What I liked about Ron is when he was here in town the other day visiting, he did talk about Florida becoming the Utah of the Southeast, and that's high praise for Florida. And so if he's kind of emulating what we're doing here in Utah, he's obviously got some good things to share, and I think he's positioned himself pretty well. We'll see what happens when the campaign gets going. Chris Sununu, who I like too, New Hampshire, his father's involved in politics, a family business there, but he's decided not to run. Again, he's a good governor, and he would have been a good candidate also. I think they're getting to the point now that some are thinking if we divide it up too much, we'll have the same thing happen with Trump walking in, because all the others, they can't get the same level of commitment. He always was at 30%, and the rest of them were less than that. And so I think there's some concern about getting too many in the race, and we'll have to see what happens there. I know Scott Walker told me when he ran before, our problem was there's too many of us, there's 15 of us, and one Donald Trump. So and that allowed Trump to get in, he thinks. And, you know, it's interesting, again, the race. We have two older gentlemen, Joe Biden, who's 80, and Donald Trump, who's 76, and both parties are less than enthused about them running.
Right.
They're ahead in the polls. A lot of that's name, ID, and incumbency, but there really is a mood of looking for something else, something younger, more visionary, and even a third-party candidate. I think if ever there was a year for a third-party candidate, this is the year Ross Perot should have run. And so it's wide open. I think it's, in spite of the polling right now, I think this getting the campaign, it's going to be a very fascinating, interesting race with all these good, qualified candidates running.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing to look at. The third party, I think I agree with you, Governor, that if ever there was a year, this would probably be it, with many voters on both sides of the aisle a little fed up and not too enthusiastic about the choices there. And I think we'll have this very interesting period. We'll have a lot of message testing, I think, over the 100 days between now and Labor Day. And then just before Labor Day, we'll have the first Republican debate will take place in Milwaukee on August the 24th. So that will be an interesting pivot point for many. And then I also think it was interesting that Governor Sununu, in saying he wouldn't run, also said he didn't mind how many got in, but it's when they get out. And being able to have that self-awareness to say, you know what, I've given this a run, there is no lane or there's no path for me to move forward, and not just hanging on and hanging around and just dividing up the votes amongst all the many candidates that are in there. Governor, give me one thing real quick before I let you go. What's one thing that you hope would be a center point, a principle or a policy that you think could get traction for any of these candidates?
Yeah, well, Chris kind of hit the nail on the head. What he's talking about is let's be common sensible. Sometimes we get so polarized with our ideology that we forget common sense really is a common ground area we can get together. When I was the head of the National Governors Association, first meeting, I said, look, I know we all run as partisans. We travel in Democrat. We had a couple of independents. Now it's time to take that label off our foreheads and replace it with common sense. Common sense will bring us together. We'll find practical solutions to the problems, and we'll work together. If we keep this ideological polarization, we'll fight and fight and fight, and the people that we represent will suffer. So the idea of finding somebody who can kind of elevate us with hope and a vision for the future and bring common sense solutions to the problems we have, which are many.
Yeah.
The debt's just the top of the list, but there's many issues that common sense can bring us together. So hopefully find kind of a Ronald Reagan-esque approach where he sat down with Tip O'Neill and said, what can we do this week together to solve some of the challenges facing America?
Fantastic. Former Utah Governor Gary Herbert. These are a lot of his friends running for president. It'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Governor, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Fascinating perspective there from the former governor. Much more conversation coming up in hour number 2 of Inside Sources. Stick around. We'll be right back after top of the hour news.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, crews have detonated a huge slab of avalanche debris that was hanging over the Provo River at Bridal Veil Falls. KSL News Radio's Adam Small reports this isn't because of a flood concern.
The river is actually flowing freely underneath this giant slab of snow and debris. Sergeant Spencer Cannon with the Utah County Sheriff's Office says they're actually doing this after video surfaced of a teen jumping through a hole in this slab into the Provo River. Now they want to make sure no one else gets any ideas.
You may be standing on 2 inches of avalanche deposit with a 15-foot cavern underneath.
Cannon says it'll likely take another month or so before the falls are reopened to the public, as there's still a lot of snow and debris on the trail. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The White House set to host an LGBTQ pride event on the south lawn of the White House tomorrow. A reporter at today's White House briefing asked whether, in the wake of the recent ramp-up of some anti-LGBTQ laws in some states, the White House should be hosting the event. Spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre answered it's exactly the right time.
We have not seen that type of anti-sentiment, against this community in decades. And so we believe that not only does this community need to be celebrated and continue to be celebrated, as he's done many times before in this past 2 years, but we also need to make sure that we let the community know that the president has their back, and we're going to continue to fight for them.
New money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 92 points on the day near the close of trading. The NASDAQ, though, down 171 points. And our KSL weather, we'll get another thunderstorm this afternoon, maybe not tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
This summer, the political season heats up.
By August, it'll be time for debates. Can you believe it?
We're planning coverage of the real issues, the important stories that impact how we live.
Listen each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
At Fisher Investments, we do things differently, and other money managers don't understand why.
Because our way works great for us.
But it may not work for your clients. That's why Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, obligated to put clients first. It's the highest standard for a financial advisor.
So, what do you provide? Cookie-cutter portfolios like the rest of us?
No cookie-cutter portfolios here. Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to meet each client's goals and needs.
But you do sell investments that earn you high commissions, right? And make commissions when you make trades for your clients?
No, Fisher Investments doesn't sell any commission investment products, and we never earn commissions on trades.
So what's in it for you?
Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when our clients do better. When it comes to helping clients achieve a comfortable retirement, we're clearly different. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments, clearly different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
Your taxes are going up, and these higher taxes could be devastating for your retirement savings. Don't be a sitting duck. Learn how you could reduce or eliminate your taxes in retirement with a free retirement tax savings analysis. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions in Salt Lake, a 3-time winner of Utah's Best of State Award. If you've saved at least $200,000 for retirement, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-682-4448. This free, customized analysis could save tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes when you retire. But time is running out, so don't wait. To get your free analysis, call 801-682-4448. 801-682-4448.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
This is Jeff Stout with Fink and McGregor Mortgages Made Simple. FHA has announced a significant reduction in mortgage insurance rates. This can be a game changer for some people. FHA rates are typically lower than conventional mortgage rates. Combine this with lower mortgage insurance and FHA is worth a look. FHA is especially attractive for low down payment, cash out, or credit issues. You don't have to be a first-time home buyer, and you can refinance into or out of an FHA loan. Another attractive feature of an FHA loan is the ability to streamline refinance when rates come down. No appraisal needed, limited documentation, and low cost helps you lower your payment with minimal fuss. Call us today. Fink and McGregor Mortgages Made Simple, 801-264-9494. That's 264-9494. Or on the web at finkmcgregor.com. NMLS 289115.
Fed Up Kitchen's now open in American Fork. Use promo code WELCOME10, all caps, at the American Fork location only and save 10%. Visit FedUpKitchen_AF on Instagram.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
A crash on southbound I-15 at 6 North, move to the shoulder, and an accident southbound Bangerter Highway at 1820 South. This is just above the 201 junction, blocking the intersection. An accident in South Salt Lake, also in the intersection, 33rd South at 9th West. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, partly cloudy through the day, with that chance of thunderstorms again this afternoon. Then a smaller chance of storms by tomorrow. We have a cooling trend with temperatures in the 80s this week, the 70s next week. Right now, 78 degrees, mostly cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, how often do you interact with strangers? For many of us, the answer is probably not very often. And of course, with new technology, Amazon, AI, DoorDash deliveries, we seem to be headed and really careening toward a future with less face-to-face conversations with people we don't know or people who live differently than we do. But talking to strangers could be more important than you think, especially for building and sustaining our democracy. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We are thrilled to have back on the program Eboo Patel. Of course, he's the founder and president of Interfaith America. He's a contributing writer for the Deseret News. He's also the author of We Need to Build, Field Notes for a Diverse Democracy. And, of course, he also has a podcast, Interfaith America, with Eboo Patel. And, Eboo, welcome back to the show. And I have so many questions I wanted to start throwing at you. But I want to start with a piece that you wrote for Deseret, talking about talking to strangers. Give us the backstory.
So, Boyd, first of all, I want to thank you for having me back on the show. I have always enjoyed talking to you, and I hope that we can make this a regular back and forth. So Talking to Strangers is actually the title of a book by the great political philosopher at Harvard, Daniel Allen. And I used it in the context of a commencement address I gave at a school called La Lumiere, which is about an hour outside of Chicago in LaPorte, Indiana. It is a boarding school with Catholic inspiration. And the point that I was trying to make to those students who were graduating is that we should be constantly engaging with people who we find different. And the example that I open with is that at the gym where I work out, there's a white guy who comes frequently who wears a Black Lives Matter shirt, and a black guy who also works out there who wears a shirt with a thin blue line flag on it, which of course is the police support shirt. And I make the point that I hope that they become friends, that they chat with each other, that they share their stories, that they discover that they like the same kind of pie but with different flavors of ice cream, that they find things that they agree upon and that they disagree upon. And then I say, I hope everyone here has a friendship like that, a friendship that confounds other people. And I hold up as kind of an archetypal friendship along those lines, the friendship between Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg of the Supreme Court. And one of my favorite pictures of those two is of them riding an elephant together in the land of my birth.
Right.
It's an excellent example of people who disagree on really important things. Supreme Court decisions really matter, and they're on the opposite side of many of them, and yet they are able to have a warm, personal friendship.
I so love that, and that relationship was so extraordinary. And it was one of those surprising ones to so many, and they actually referred to each other as their shopping buddies. I just loved, and how they were divided on so many things in terms of the interpretation, but they were absolutely one in their determination to do their job and to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the land. It was just one of those remarkable friendships and surprising. I love that you're challenging and inviting people to do something with someone who looks different, thinks different, lives different than they do. I remember talking with Joseph Grenny, who, of course, wrote Crucial Conversations, and he did some work in South Africa just after apartheid ended. And they actually used to do a poll question every 6 months in the country. And one of the questions was, in the last 6 months, have you had dinner or a meal with someone of a different race? And I thought, what a great question that we really all ought to be asking ourselves, and that's exactly what you're inviting everyone to do.
Right, and differences of all kinds, right?
Yeah.
Not just differences in race. One of the points that I make in the speech, which actually didn't make it into the column, but I think it's important to underscore, is that none of us are Russian nesting dolls, by which I mean none of us are in a position where our most external identities and dolls, so to speak, is entirely reflected by our internal dolls, right? Yeah. You can't guess somebody's moral compass or their politics or their aesthetics or their relationship with their family or the music that they like based entirely on what you can see from the outside. And we shouldn't expect that of other people, and we shouldn't want to be that ourselves. And so our society increasingly encourages people to put themselves in boxes, and I really want people to resist that.
Yeah, I love that. And so let's dig into that a little bit in terms of some practical tacticals, in terms of how do we do that? I think you're 100% right in terms of we often self-isolate, self-bubble, self-box ourselves. But let's talk about how do we engage in that process? What are the kinds of conversations we need to have? What kind of questions do we need to get to? What kind of listening is required to get to that kind of conversation?
So the great Stoic philosopher from Rome, Seneca, said, while we are human, while we are amongst human beings, let us cultivate our humanity. And I think what he means by that is treat people like poems and not tropes. Treat people not as if they are representatives of a particular category, whether that's race or political party or geography, but treat people as if they are human beings with all sorts of individual tastes and idiosyncrasies, and treat yourself as that. You are not just an exponent or a representative of a particular category that you belong to. That category matters. That religion, that race, that ethnicity matters, but what you make of it will very likely be different than what somebody else makes of it. So let's engage in that creative process with our identities and traditions, and let's engage in the equal creative process with other people.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important element to all of that, the identity. That if we're going way downstream, identities of race or gender or sexual orientation or political party or whatever it may be, those are so downstream from that human identity or that divine identity. And how do we lean into that? How do we teach our kids to lean in, to be curious enough to explore that identity in others?
One of the things I quote in this commencement, which is in the Deseret column, is a poem by William Stafford called "Ask Me," and Stafford says, "When the river is ice, ask me if what I have done is my life." And I encourage these graduates to ask the people around them, their teachers, their mentors, their coaches, their parents, their aunts, their uncles, ask them if what they have done is their life. And what I'm encouraging really is the process of intergenerational storytelling. Ask people around you what meaning they have made from the identities that they belong to. And I actually think that, our who we are in the world is probably downstream from those identities, right? So I think that race really matters. I think religion really matters. As the great Catholic philosopher Alistair McIntyre says, I cannot tell you who I am or what I am going to do until I tell you the story or stories that I belong to. So I belong to the story of Islam. I engage with that tradition, but I'm very likely a different kind of Muslim than the Muslim down the street, right? So we are both downstream from the tradition of Islam, but we engage with the waters differently. And I think that that process, this is how I define interfaith actually. Inter is our interaction with people from different backgrounds. Faith is our interaction with our tradition. And we will all in some ways have different relationships with the tradition. We will emphasize different things. We will find meaning and comfort in different things. And that meaning and comfort will likely change because of the way we interact with people from different backgrounds. And I want people to engage in that process in a fulsome way, in a creative way, in a humanistic way, in an empathetic way. I think that is the part that makes us all human, is the manner we engage with the stories that we are a part of, stories that are larger than us, right? The story of Black people in America is hundreds of years old, and it's a long and beautiful narrative. And the way that any individual Black person engages with it means they are part of that particular river. What they make of those waters is their individual raft within that river, so to speak. And then how that individual raft interacts with people from other rafts, that's the kind of civilization we're building now.
We're going to stay with the conversation a little bit longer with Eboo Patel. This time we're going to dig into what it means to build bridges of understanding and how higher education, often criticized about conversations, could actually be part of that bridge building process. Stay with us. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Summer 2023 will be one to remember.
Mike Pence and Chris Christie set to enter the race.
Governor Cox is actively looking for trade away from China.
Brace for higher gas prices.
It's a summer to camp out on KSL. Tim and Amanda have breaking news. Mornings 5 to 9. David Dujanovic and Boyd Matheson talk about the biggest stories during the day. And you get updates and Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News from 3 to 7 on the drive home. The summer of 2023 will be on KSL News Radio.
Many of you have been following my SOTA weight loss journey. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is state-of-the-art. I've been doing it for over a year and a half now, and the difference is unbelievable. And it's one that I love to share because it's made such a difference for me. I lost over 37 pounds in just 90 days, and then here I am a year and a half out. I feel better, I sleep better, I think better, and it's all a very simple process. It is science. You have your own nutritionist and coach to help you along the way. No pills, no potions, no lotions, no magic, no anything. It's just very simple. It's helping you understand and getting your body the right kind of fuel at the right times during the day and becoming intentional about what you're eating and how you're going about it. And I'm not the only one. There are countless people across the country and many right here in the state of Utah who have found the difference from SOTA weight loss journey. As I always say about that journey, there's no time to lose when it comes to SOTA weight loss. There's only time to win, so start winning today. Check it out at sotaweightloss.com, SOTAweightloss.com.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
Your taxes are going up, and these higher taxes could be devastating for your retirement savings. Don't be a sitting duck. Learn how you could reduce or eliminate your taxes in retirement with a free retirement tax savings analysis. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions in Salt Lake, a 3-time winner of Utah's Best of State Award. If you've saved at least $200,000 for retirement, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-682-4448. This free, customized analysis could save tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes when you retire. But time is running out, so don't wait. To get your free analysis, call 801-682-4448. 801-682-4448.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Pro Paint Days are here at Lowe's. Now through June 16th, Lowe's MVPs members can start earning 20% back in paint rewards via Lowe's e-gift card when you spend $100 or more on qualifying paint purchases. Stock up on top paint brands like our new and exclusive HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams Spec-Rite Pro Interior Paint. Lowe's knows pros. Exclusions, restrictions, and more terms apply. See Lowe's.com/L/pro loyalty terms. Subject to change.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah County found a way to deal with an attractive nuisance at Bridal Veil Falls. They blew it up. Second, Pope Francis said to be awake and doing fine after surgery at a hospital in Rome. Third, the White House getting ready to host a Pride Week celebration, and they're proud of it. Right now, it's 78 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
If you're just joining us, we have Eboo Patel, founder and president of Interfaith America. He's a contributing writer for Deseret News. He's the author of We Need to Build, Field Notes for a Diverse Democracy. He's the host of the podcast Interfaith America with Eboo Patel. And Eboo, we want to continue the conversation. This is such vital things that we need to get into, and we need to get into more and get more comfortable with as a society, and starting in our own homes and then in our own neighborhoods and communities, and ultimately as a country and everyone around the world. I want to go to another piece that you have written talking about how do we get past some of the tribalism and some of the things that are happening. And you point out in a really interesting way that higher education can really help resolve a lot of the tribal conflicts. And that's a little contrary headline-wise in terms of what a lot of people perceive is going on or could go on a college campus.
Well, American higher education is a jewel of our civilization. There's a book out there called College by Andy Delbanco, who's a professor at Columbia, and he says, listen, if you were to list any of the great achievements of American civilization, baseball, jazz, the Constitution, our national parks, American higher education would be top 10 at the very least. And I think we should pause and just reflect on that. However, whatever controversies are swirling around our college campuses, we really rely on our campuses to set our civic priorities, to generate a research base for the nation, to educate our next generation of leaders, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things I think that our colleges are well poised to do is to welcome people of different backgrounds. And that includes a BYU in which, 90 or 95% of the students are LDS. You're still welcoming people from all over the world, from all different geographies within the United States, from different class levels, right? So it's still people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And you are encouraging them to deepen into their particular identities while having positive relationships with one another and learning how to cooperate on common projects for the common good. And so that's the basic model that we advance at my organization, Interfaith America. Respect, relate, cooperate. And I think that college campuses have a perfect opportunity to model that, to kind of be a laboratory for that kind of pluralism, and then a launching pad for leaders who are able to create that ethos elsewhere.
Oh, I love that. That launching pad for leaders who get that. That's so crucial. The respect, relate, cooperate is, I think, the real relate, cooperate. is, I think, the real core of leadership for the 21st century is being able to understand and navigate that. You started out your piece in Deseret talking about a very interesting op-ed in the New York Times by a high school junior. Just give us a quick context of that and then how we can look for some of those solutions.
Yeah, so this young man was writing from Burbank, California, where the curriculum had just been changed to remove a number of texts because people had complained that they were racist. And these texts are kind of standard texts in the American canon, Huck Finn and To Kill a Mockingbird, etc. And this high school junior noted that other school districts at the same time were removing different kinds of books from their curriculum. A school district in Texas had moved a set of books that had themes that were LGBTQ related. And part of what this high school junior was hoping for was a genuine discussion at this school board meeting that would ask hard questions like, when should our curriculum change based on something that's controversial? And instead, of course, there was this like tribal fight within the school board, people basically shouting slogans at each other, free speech versus social justice. And it occurred to me reading this op-ed, this is what America is becoming, and that is not good. Like, we need to have spaces where our high school students can go and experience a genuine discussion on challenging issues. Any diverse democracy is going to have a whole host of legitimate conflicts. We need to have public spaces where we can hash those challenges out. We can't be subjecting high school students to food fights between different sides of the political tribes, right? Well, what if our college campuses were producing leaders who could facilitate school board meetings like that away from the tribal conflict and towards the meaningful discussion?
You were part of just such a discussion with some higher ed association presidents. It was put together by your group, Interfaith America, and More Perfect, another organization. Give us a sense of what that conversation sounded like.
But it was an excellent conversation with a whole set of higher ed association presidents. These are people like Lynn Pasquarella and Marjorie Haas, who oversee networks of campuses. And they were there all day to lean into the question, how can we help our campuses be the kind of spaces that promote bridge building on campus and that train people to be bridge builders when they leave campus? And it was extremely heartening to have 40 or 50 people there taking this agenda very seriously. And I'm very hopeful that it becomes a part of the agenda of higher education into the future. So it's an excellent launch pad towards that.
Such an important, and I always say those first meetings are always important, as well as last, especially when they're followed by some real transformation. And I think that's what happened in that meeting, and I hope that's one that continues to move forward. As our listeners digest this and take this in, and of course, we always say it's about holding up the mirror rather than shouting a talking point at somebody else. What do you hope people look in the mirror, and then what do you hope they do as a result of kind of thinking differently in terms of where they're coming from, maybe the role of higher education as bridge builder, and the future of these kinds of crucial debates in our society?
Well, I hope that people might be interested enough in this radio conversation to actually go and look at those essays on Deseret. And if you just Google my name and Deseret, Eboo Patel and Deseret News, you'll come up with a string of those essays, and it'll give you some good quotes, I think, to engage in conversation with. I hope people talk to strangers. I hope people don't self-stereotype. They don't think of themselves as having to only represent the Russian doll approach to identity, that everything that people see on the outermost doll must somehow be reflected perfectly in every innermost doll. I mean, we're complicated creatures, and those complications are beautiful and real. I hope that we realize that the manner in which we engage with one another as individuals is actually collectively what makes up our civic fabric and what builds our diverse democracy. As the great Jesuit philosopher John Courtney Murray said, a civilization is living and talking together. That's literally what a civilization is. And the barbarian is the person who destroys the conversation. So let's go out there and open up positive conversations and not destroy them.
That's so important, and on so many different topics and so many different issues, there are a lot of people willing to interrupt, destroy, distract from the real conversation that living together and interacting is so powerful. Eboo Patel is the founder and president of Interfaith America, a contributing writer for the Deseret News. Of course, we've mentioned his book, We Need to Build. These really are field notes for a diverse democracy. We all need to check that out. And then, of course, his podcast you can follow as well, Interfaith America with Eboo Patel. And Eboo, we appreciate you carving out time for us for this very important, vital conversation where everyone gets a seat at the table, everyone gets a voice, and it actually helps us move towards that more perfect union. Thank you so much for joining us today.
That's right. Let's all bring a dish to the American potluck. Thank you, Boyd.
Always love that Eboo references the potluck. It's not a melting pot. It's a potluck because everyone needs to bring something to the table, and everyone is valued as being able to bring something to the table. And I think what Eboo described in our conversation today, that a society is living together and talking together. The barbarian is the one who disrupts the conversation and prevents the conversation from happening. We need far fewer barbarians. We got more than enough. What we really need is people living together in a society where we can talk together, where we can live together, where we can grow and prosper together. That's the real key. Big thanks to Eboo Patel for joining us today. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Much more coming on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. The National Weather Service has canceled the last flood advisories of the runoff season. KSL meteorologist Kevin Eubank tells David Dujanovic this means the majority of the state right now out of the woods.
For having the historic snowpack that we had and the potential for just a catastrophic melt, it just couldn't have happened any better.
And this is the end of 40 days of continuous flood watches, warnings, and advisories from the National Weather Service. 300 East between 800 South and 900 South in Salt Lake City will be closed for a couple of weeks to repair damage caused by a water main break. The main was providing water to a senior housing facility on 800 East, and they hope to have that back in operation by this afternoon. Our top national story this hour. Airlines once again considering ways to fit more people on planes. KSL News Radio's Heather Kelly reports the double-decker idea is closer to becoming reality.
It's not a done deal yet, but inventor Nunez Vicente is turning airline seating on its head. He designed a double-decker seating concept, which is being featured at the Aircraft Interiors Expo in Hamburg, Germany. CNN.com reports the prototype allows for plenty of
legroom, but puts a lot more passengers on airplanes. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing the trading day up 91. We could see that thunderstorm again this afternoon, but it's possible we won't tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Register for breaking news updates by texting the word news to the Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line at 57500.
This is Jeff Kaplan, and I am a blue razzmatazz guy. Now, I know maybe you're all about Simply Mango or maybe Tiger's Blood. No judgment, but when it comes to the highly personal decision of your favorite Frazzle flavor, blue razzmatazz is my jam. Well, really, it's my slug. Got its start here in Utah 20 years ago, and now you find Frazzle machines at convenience stores from coast to coast, Friday through June at participating locations. They're celebrating Free Frazzle Friday at Holiday Oil, Maverick, Top Stop, and many other convenience stores. At the Frazzle app, or go to freefrazzlefriday.com. Maybe you love Georgia Peach or Tangerango. You're going to love the Frazzle flavors.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors to tell you about our 10-year everything guarantee. Most contractors spout off having great warranties that last forever, but those warranties are always, and I do mean all parts, labor, material, everything and anything for 10 full years. There's no cost to you whatsoever, no hoops to jump through, no exceptions. Yes, the products we sell, like James Hardy Siding, our windows, gutter covers, come with a 25 to 50-year manufacturer's warranty, just like everybody else. But the truth is, the products almost never fail. It's allsutah.com. Gutters, siding, windows, and all exteriors with the 10-year everything guarantee.
Les Olson IT is now a Rico Graphic Arts and Production Systems dealer. Rico chose Les Olson because of our reputation for superior service and national recognition. Les Olson IT chose Rico Graphics because they're the best value compared to other commercial IT.
June 15th is Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and the Utah Department of Health and Human Services is hosting a virtual event from 10 to noon. Text SENIOR to 57500 to register.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
In Carbon County, we've had a vehicle fire affecting traffic in Price at Highway 6 and SR 10. And for Bluffdale Drive, history, recreation, and wildlife, along with excellent dining and shopping, await you. Find out more at visitboxeldercounty.com. Ricky Meese in the K.
But tomorrow it looks like thickly cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
One of the many elective classes that high school students choose are important and necessary to discuss. But what happens if those students are no longer allowed to say what they actually want to say? What if the true purpose of high school debate is not what it seems anymore? We need to get into that because I think having that kind of debate is what makes the country extraordinary. And if we lose that at the high school level in terms of debate.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Boyd.
So let's dive into this. You were a debate coach. You've been involved.
13. I went off to college, and then I came back as a debate coach for 2 years. Debate changed my life. I had a really The Economist magazine, the Wall Street Journal, learning about Milton Friedman and F.A. Hayek and having these awesome debates as a freshman in high school. It really was life-changing. And that's why I came back as a debate coach. There are these something called paradigms that your listeners want to know about. A paradigm is where paradigms got hijacked in the press, where